Belgium claims it's not anti-Semitic. Halal got clumped in their determination to get rid of the kosher slaughter, which they claim is cruel to the animals. And as I pointed out in a video yesterday, a single cut to the throat done right is a lot more compassionate than sticking a cattle prod up the cow's butt and basically electrocuting it, which is the standard way to kill livestock. Isn't that nice and compassionate? Isn't that just avoiding any trauma to the animal before it dies? Now, not only have they done this, which is clearly anti-Semitic, but a mohel is a rabbi who does circumcisions. There's a rabbi who will do slaughtering. There's a rabbi who does the circumcisions. There's a rabbi who writes the scrolls for your mezuzah. They all go through the basic training, and then much like in university, you get advanced training, depending on what area you're going to go into. A mohel is taught to kill an animal with a single stroke. Okay? And that is, as I've mentioned before, a lot nicer than shoving a cattle prod up the animal's ass and electrocuting it, which is the standard way to kill livestock these days. However, the United States pointed out, ironically, but nonetheless correctly, that this was a really anti-Semitic thing to do, because it's not as if it wasn't established decades ago that men are healthier if they're circumcised. They are less inclined to get infections, and they have less performance problems. Nonetheless, these rabbis have been taught to do this for thousands of years, longer than modern medicine has existed. And Belgium bristled at the idea from the United States that they were being anti-Semitic. They say they're not anti-Semitic. Well, are they? Aren't they? Since October 7th, they've seen a 1,000% increase in anti-Semitic incidents compared to the previous years, going back to 2017. By 2025, 97% of Jews in Belgium say they had encountered anti-Semitism in their daily lives, and 70% admit that they're now hiding that they're Jewish when they go out in public, because Belgium is just so friendly to Jews, right? Yeah. Since, despite constantly saying those who will not remember the history are doomed to repeat it, it is amazing how many people, adults now, who don't believe the Holocaust happened, don't believe it was as bad as it was, don't believe it was its primary goal was the elimination of Jews. I mean, I mentioned it yesterday, or 2 days ago. The BBC on Holocaust Memorial Day does not mention Jews. And that is an anti-Semitic thing to do, because you are denying the main purpose of the Holocaust, which was the genocide of Jews. Much like you ignore right now when you have people screaming about Palestine and saying intifada, knowing full well that that word means that they want violence against Jews, and people who are pro-Palestine don't care. I mean, in Canada, we've got children's Jewish summer camps being targeted by adults terrorizing children because children matter so much. Right? Right. Palestine Action has done so much damage. Sorry, I had to look it up. Over £1 million worth of damages to computers, technical products, anything they consider to be a company that either works for Israel or is associated with Israel. They broke into a military base and caused millions in damage by the spray painting into the engines of the aircrafts. They have been damaging security systems, loading bays, other defense systems like Tails in Glasgow. They have an underground manual to facilitate coordinated attacks. And yet, in England, they will not be proclaimed as a terrorist organization, despite the fact that they openly use terrorism and they have an open aim, which is the genocide of Jews. But England being England, much like France saying that a Jew's life isn't worth the same as a dog's, England has a long history of suppressing, oppressing, and violently killing their Jews. This way, the English can say, well, it wasn't us. It was those people that we let into the country. Meanwhile, since I keep trying to point out to so many of you, the Republicans don't like Jews. The left says Israel. The right say Jews. Huckabee tells Carlson that they would be fine with the only functioning democracy in the Middle East controlling all of the Middle East, which is not something Israel has ever said it wants to do, but does play in nicely into the hands of the pro-terrorists who claim that Israel is a colonizing entity. It has 0.4% of the land in that whole area. But somehow the ones that have something like 73%, they're being colonized by the 0.4%. 140 suitcases had to be left in Los Angeles because someone decided they were going to put Free Palestine stickers all over everything that was going to Israel. And in case you didn't know, because Israel deals with terrorism constantly, has been dealing with it for almost 70 years, and yet most of you don't even bother to care, anything that has been tampered with gets left behind until security can check it. Because knowing how fond the Palestinian supporters are of suicide bombing, the idea that they would just stick bombs in suitcases did not seem that far-fetched. And just to end all of this with a typical thing from the BBC, who, as I've mentioned, didn't even mention the Jews during Holocaust Memorial Day, well, now they want to claim that there was more than one Holocaust. And again, I will point out to you, Holocaust, little h, is a fire, a conflagration. Holocaust, big H, is only to deal with the attempted genocide of Jews by the Nazis in the 1900s. Okay? You don't get to apply it to something else, thus trying to minimize what Jews went through, which is the whole point of this. And the BBC, they lied for 2 years about what was going on in Gaza, came out in the last couple of months admitting that they lied. But much like anything else, once the lie is out there and the conspiracy bigots get a hold of it, telling them the truth 2 years later, much like the Vatican, after thousands of years of saying Jews killed Christ, suddenly coming out twice in 1 century and going, oh, that was wrong, we shouldn't have said that. You really think that's going to change the inherent prejudice that all Judeo-Christian religions give to their indoctrinated? And as someone who was raised Anglican, I can say that with certainty.